Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us on the webinar today. As many of you know, I'm Dan. I'm joined here today with my business partner, long-term colleague, Mark.
Hello.
And we'll be going through everything that came out of the Chancellor's speech yesterday. So as all clients hopefully will have received, the ones that you're on there, a copy of the budget summary report that we've put together. So as I say, we'll go through key topics. I can see that most of you have found the chat box on the side of the screen. If you've got any questions as we go along through anything, please feel free to drop them in there. We'll try and make sure that we can get through as many of those as possible. And if that expands on the topics and stuff that we're chatting about already, even better. So please do be interactive. Let us know if you've got questions that come up. And like I said, it'd be really good to go through them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Mark. He's going to kick off with the first sort of topic or first issue that was on his list of stuff, and we'll take it from there. So over to you, Mark.
Hello, everyone. I'm not going to start at the topic where Daniel thought I was. I was going to start on probably the last one we talked about, which was this is not a red, yellow, or blue comment, but I thought that was a very clever budget. We had all the bad news in March. We had less bad news now. Labour Party doesn't quite know whether it's left or centre. Tories have now come in from the right and they're sitting in the centre. I thought it was quite a clever budget. I think there's so much implication from it, even though everyone looking at it didn't see anything scary. I think there's lots of implications and we'll be talking about those today. So my starting point was clever budget. Don't be too happy about it because there's lots of bits still to come. So shall I go on to the first of my substantive topics?
Yeah.
Okay. I think the first one I'll start with, of course, is inflation. At the moment, we've got high levels of inflation, not due to any structural reason. Obviously, we know the energy issues. We know about transport issues. Brexit, tariffs has put costs up. So we've got a temporarily high inflation rate. I think inflation will increase. I think there is a risk that we're going to, once this short-term measure is over, I think general inflation is going to push us up at 4-5%. Interest rates will inevitably, I think, increase. The question now is it 22 or is it 23? My bet would be 22. I'll bet on 22 simply because the tax rate in the banks have gone up. Everyone's bleating. There's always bleating, isn't there? Every time there's a budget, everyone bleats. There's bleating about how the banks have been protected. No, their tax rate is 28%. With their tax rate having gone up, I'm sure they're trying to make some more profit. What's the easy way to make some more profit? Charge higher interest rates. So I'm anticipating higher interest rates. The property clients amongst those that are watching today are all going to moan about, the interest rates are going up. It's not fair. You should never have anticipated interest rates being at this level ongoing. We've always encouraged clients to use a 5% interest rate in their stacking. So inflation, interest rates, inflation is going to come in with labour costs. And perhaps, Daniel, you want to talk about labour costs? Is that something you fancy?
Yeah, no, I think that's, obviously definitely a relevant point in terms of what's there with the increase to the national living wage. I think that was always on the agenda that was going to happen. I think that, the biggest issue right now, I think for lots of businesses, everyone I'm talking to, is actually getting the people in. Lots of businesses out there right at the moment are recruiting and they're trying to recruit very hard. But not getting either the quality of candidate or the volume that you may have been used to pre-pandemic. Mm-hmm. Obviously, with any wage increase at the lower end, that's obviously always going to have a knock-on effect onto the next banding of people and the banding after and so on. So again, there's going to be a burden on business, obviously with the increase in terms of the national insurance element to it as well, which was already... we knew that was coming. They'll call it the social care levy, but it's national insurance, it's tax. It's there. And again, that's on the employer costs as well. I think that was something that was not quite as evident when they first announced it, in terms of the employer will be paying that 1.25% more, as well as employees, and obviously on the dividend tax as well. So, it's a difficult one, I think, from everybody I'm speaking to at the moment, is really people are keen to be doing stuff, which is great. And we've seen that, I think, for for quite a few months now. I think it's fair to say, Mark, isn't it? That people have cracked on, they're doing stuff, they want to be busier. And those issues are still there, I think. And, how they're tackled and what people can do to keep on top of that is probably going to be the big challenge, I think, over the next year or so, to get that back really to where it should be. Because, like I said, there's lots of employees out there that want people.
100% agree with you. I think I'd like to talk about sort of strategy and, the state of business at the moment, but just finish off on employment costs. It was interesting because other people, obviously people have spoken to us and, what do we think, etc. And I've talked about inflation and interest rates, as I've done today. The grey pound, the retired folk are all super happy. They can start to earn some interest from their money again. But the 1.25, whilst we all know it's just tax, come on, it's just tax. But the fact it's the social levy applies to the pensioners as well. They don't pay national insurance, but they will be paying the social levy of 1.25. So they might earn a bit of interest, but all their other incomes, their dividend income, etc., they're going to suffer the 1.25 as well. So I don't think the grey pound's going to be very happy about this one. It hasn't really come out much yet. So on employment costs, we've got a huge amount of increased costs, lack of availability, 1 million vacancies now that we can't fill in the country. Prices are going to go up. There's going to be inflation. Inflation is going to beget interest rates. So totally agree with everything you said, Daniel. If can I move on to business and boom? And
definitely.
So again, obviously, folks, this is a lot of opinion stuff we're giving here. We're not giving you professional advice. This is our feel for what's happening. I have to say that I was listening to insurance people talking about be careful about advice and getting sued for giving advice. Business is booming right now. If your business isn't booming, there's something wrong. Talk to us. Let's get some strategy work done. Let's find out why you're not booming, because it is everywhere else. And that's why we've got so many vacancies. So it's because the economy's bounced back so hard. We're now forecast on 6.5% growth this year. Yes, it's from a low number, but it's high growth. And we're going to get back to pre-pandemic times quicker than everyone thought. All of these things are going to stoke up inflation. They're going to stoke up interest rates. They're going to have problems on labour costs, getting recruitment, getting your people employed, getting new employees. There's a lot of strategy work we're doing. I'll talk about one. Hauliers. We all know the problem with hauliers. You can't get HGV drivers. Good. Well, hire some smaller lorries then and get people who don't have HGV licenses, but older people who are allowed to drive 7.5 ton trucks, and just get more trucks, even if you have to hire them, and you can still make your deliveries. So there are ways to solve problems. All you've got to do is use your brains a bit. So there are problems out there. Business should be booming. Let's crack on, shall we? Let's make it work. So go on, Daniel. What are you going to give them next? I'm being Mr. Doom and Gloom here.
No, I think for me, there was obviously lots of things that were announced prior to yesterday's announcement, and now it starts to really, from our perspective, we start to measure that impact and what that means and changes and stuff that people need to make. And one of the things that we've obviously talked about an awful lot over a period of time is with regards to the support and stuff that was put in place over that period of time. So one of those that they mentioned yesterday that is extended is the recovery loan scheme. So they mentioned that's extended now for a further 3 months to the end of June next year, rather than to the end of March. with one very subtle change, which again doesn't massively affect business, but the government guaranteed part is dropping from 80% down to 70%. So really we know that, again, that's the support and the reassurance maybe to give to financiers to get that money out to people. But as you've said, you've touched on there, Mark, in terms of looking at things differently and how you can use the funds that are available, there are still government-supported loans that are there that may be able to facilitate some of these changes in plans, different direction, capital investment, all of those sorts of bits and pieces that go along with it. And again, that ties, nicely. And I think that was the biggest thing I took from both the budget yesterday and what was announced previously was, again, it's driven to get activity and investment and stuff happening. So those sorts of things tie in very nicely with the super deduction that was mentioned previously. And then yesterday, the change being that the annual investment allowance limit up to the million was going to be extended until March 2023 as well. So, again, this is all stimulating people to go out and spend that money, or go out and spend money that they can get hold of and do stuff with business. So again, that investment back into it. And that's something that, I think people can, people can do it very sensibly, but equally people can do it and really benefit from these things as you say, go through that sort of boom period. One thing, like I've come across a lot, and his queries that have come up, is around that super deduction. And again, I think, we've always said it, and we say it in every sort of email that we put out with these things, the devil's always in the detail. I think the super deduction, again, was a little bit of a mask for some things because it only related to new assets. So again, newly produced things. So it was driven to get manufacturers going and people building stuff. But again, we know that there's lots of clients that are buying secondhand things, or there's people doing stuff. And again, that's where that investment allowance, annual investment allowance, comes into it a bit more, because that is going to support that type of purchase. So again, it allows people to do things maybe on a lower level, cheaper level, all those sorts of things, while still getting some benefit, although maybe not at the enhanced rate. So I said it was a funny one. The super deduction, it was all sort of Superman and cloaks and stuff like that. But it was, I know we know we've got clients that are benefiting from it. But I said that annual investment allowance one is probably quite a key one that's sort of drifting along beside it as well.
Yeah, I think the AIA, the annual allowance, is much more important than the super deduction. The super deduction is nice if you can get it, but the annual investment allowance is a big one. And again, go back to the chat with the trucks. It's fine if you need, rather than hiring the trucks, you need to buy the trucks. Well, fine, that's great. But then the firm that hired them bought them. Somebody bought them.
Yeah.
So there was a relief, and it pumps the market up. So a lot of these things does pump the market up, and for goodness sake, the country needed it. I'm not criticising the government for pumping, but it's going to be interesting to see what 22 and 23 are going to be like now. So
yeah, because I mean, we said it before. I think it was on probably the last, the March one that we did of this. With the corporation tax rates, obviously nothing changed with what they announced again yesterday. No changes to that. So we're still heading towards this potential 6% increase for people, depending on where their profits sit. That's again the timing, therefore, of your spend. When do you do it? Do you do it when you get the extra 30% on something, if you can get the super deduction, or do you try and do it when you might get more relief against corporation tax and manage that tax rate? So it's all trying to bring things forward a little bit as well, isn't it, in terms of this stuff as well?
A lot of that is just bringing it forward.
Yeah.
So as you can see through all of this, it's that fairly typical. Daniel's doing all the nice positive stuff, and I'm being visual. I'll do a positive.
You play the roles quite well, though, Mark. I think.
Yeah, it works quite well. I'll do a positive one. The benefit in kind, BIC. I think it was a good thing that the Chancellor has set the BIC rates, the benefit in kind rates on vehicles, and he's fixed them Thank you, Matthew. Yeah, I'm having a good mood compared to normal sometimes. Yeah. Fixed the rates for quite a while. I thought that was a good idea. We've seen lots of words about technology making us a high labor cost, high output country, and those things we should all want anyway. So I don't have a problem with that. The one that really impressed me though was obviously setting the BIC rates so far into the future, into 2025. If you look at electric vehicles, and I know that Paul Gosling has been spending a lot of time with a lot of clients, giving them advice on electric vehicles and through their companies. Realistically, the idea of that a £40,000 electric vehicle is worth, I think it's something like a taxable benefit of 800 quid, and by the time you pay tax on that, you could end up paying just 160 quid a year tax on having a £40,000 vehicle through the company. These are positive things, and getting us away from petrochemical fuels, etc. Yes, we don't have the investment in the petrol stations yet, in the charging stations, but I think these are positive things, and there are certainly some good positives in the budget yesterday. Not just me being miserable and looking for the nasty dog in the corner.
The electric car one, Mark, is, like I said, it's a topic we get asked about a lot. Paul's had an awful lot of clients go through the calculations and stuff like that, which is great.
I think we're going to change his name from the singing taxman to the EV taxman. Is that right?
We'll get him his own charging point, keep him going. But with there was, I don't know if you saw it, there was the report that came out, was it maybe a week or so before the budget, with regards to could the government afford for the tax drop on like fuel duty and all those sorts of things if they actually achieve what they say
what they want, can they afford it?
Yeah, I thought that again. This is,
and the answer is no, they can't.
Correct, and this is going to be the interesting problem, like I say, in terms of what we see today versus what we might see.
Okay. Subject close to my heart. Those of you that know me well enough know I'm a smoker. Okay, yes, we're a dying breed. The government spends so much time trying to get us to stop smoking, but what are they going to do to fill in all the tax gap with their success? So there's tax gaps everywhere, and you're absolutely right. If you get away from petrochemicals, what are you going to do about the tax gap? I also drive a diesel, and I remember when diesel was super cheap, it was subsidized because it's so much better than petrol. So everyone buy a diesel car. So we all went out and bought diesel cars. Now I'm punished badly for driving a diesel. So it's great that you're going to have an electric car, but perhaps not keep it for, don't set your heart on having it forever. Because you don't know what the government's going to do to you after 2025, because they might be doing quite bad things to you. I'm going to do another miserable one. You got something positive to say before I do a miserable one?
Not massively, no.
Okay, I've got a positive one if I need. I'll do a positive one. For those of you that know, obviously, Riverview Portfolio is our company, is our principal brand. We've got the other brands. One of our companies is called All Star, and we look after performance artists. So obviously something we're very keen on keeping an eye on is what's happening with the entertainment industry. I'm delighted to see the 50% rate reduction and the extra support for the creative sector. The sooner we can get more of our performance artists back into work. Yes, I'm a minor patron of an orchestra. I'm delighted to see they're back. I haven't turned up for a concert yet because I'm various reasons, but lovely to see that. So I'm very, what I am pleased with is to see the creative sector getting some proper support. Will the creative sector be moaning that they didn't get everything they possibly could have asked for? No, of course they will. Everyone's moaning about everything, which I think is probably the definition of getting it about right, when everyone complains about everything. But I'm very pleased with that one, to see the creative sector was protected a little bit. So
there's quite a lot of funding as well, isn't there, for museums and different bits and pieces like that.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah. But it's horrible when you start seeing musicians who've actually given up and they've got proper jobs rather than temporary jobs, and will they ever come back? And is their art now a hobby? So MJ, you're sitting there, you're working hard, and you keep your music going. Well done. Please keep going. So Daniel, various others, keep going. We need you. We need art in our lives.
Yeah.
So shall we talk about the business rate reduction?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Do you want to do it? Shall I?
Yeah, so as announced yesterday, so it was 50% discounting with regards to business rates in the hospitality, leisure, and retail sectors. Yeah, this is alongside obviously the grants and etc. that were supported in the last 18 months or so with regards to that. Which again, on the face of it, is great because of they're getting support still. I know again from speaking with clients, especially retail, and obviously the leisure side of things, there's still things aren't back up to normal footfall levels. I don't think so. There's still is support that's needed around the high street and the support for that. I mean, I do have quite strong opinions on the high street and different things that actually, again, maybe Mark touches on it from a strategic point of view. Is actually there's an element of if you've got a shop or you've got something that you need to keep challenging yourself to be doing something different. And I think it comes back then to servicing people. So again, we always talk about the power of online and how we can go and get something and we can get it instantly. And you hear about people that go in and try something on in the shop and then go somewhere else to buy it, go online to buy it. I think there's quite an interesting task or project that could be done with retail to try and enhance that. And again, that will hopefully self-fulfill them really in terms of strengthening the high street. I personally feel, I know that's quite a personal feel really in terms of what we could be doing more to keep the high streets alive really, and which knock-on effect to other businesses as well. It has a knock-on effect. If people know where our office is, we're bang in the middle of the town where our HQ is. And actually, it has a knock-on effect to us that the high street's busy and stuff like that, which is, we want to encourage that and support that as well. There's obviously some stuff within the rates with regards to more frequent revaluations of rates and stuff. So again, the cynics in us will know that that's only going to go in one direction, that people are going to get revalued and pushed up. At small business rates relief potentially. Up on the multipliers and stuff that are applied to that, which give with one hand, take a lot more with the other. We know how it works. It's nothing new, but that's you could get lost with the headline of 50% reduction for these ones, when actually it's going to be pain to pay for that at a later point.
Rather than your rate bill increasing every 5 years, it's going to increase every 3 years, and they've also changed the appeal process. Because the appeal process has got 3 steps. So in the future, there's only 2. All right. So do you want to guess how easy it's going to be to appeal to your more frequent increases in business rates? There's the bits that are not in the headlines, I think, are the substantive elements that we as business owners need to be focusing on, because it's all very nice that I like what they've done with universal credit. Let's reward people. Well, let's stop punishing people for doing work. So I like what they've done with that. So there's good things, but look behind and see what's happening. And as business owners, we're only asking you to look forward 3 years. In the life of your business, that's nothing. It's a blink of an eye, it'll be gone. So there's a couple. I'm going to talk about new regulations that are coming in, things that we know are going to change. But I don't know, Dan, do you want to talk about the CGT and MTD? Because that will give me a nice lead into the bits I was going to do.
Yeah, so again, it wasn't actually mentioned in the speech yesterday, but it's come out in the detail that we've shared and obviously the information and stuff that we went through yesterday after that was delivered. That with regards to capital gains tax on residential property, they bought in, was it April 19?
We actually started for the foreign owners of property back in 15, and it came out. Then it was commercial, and then it came out into 19 to residential. Yes.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, if you've got residential property and in your personal name, you sell it. Previously, you just whacked it on your tax return in the year in which you sold it, which meant that the payment period may be way off depending on when in the tax year you sold it. They brought in the rules that you now have to then report that on a 30-day from completion of sale, along with the payment at the same time. Yesterday, they've made the change to double that period of time. So it's now gone to 60 days rather than 30-day reporting, which personally I found we've handled a lot of those over the last 18 months, 2 years, like since it's been brought in. And we've had zero problem that I can recall of getting them done and getting them done in that time scale and clients understanding it and all that sort of stuff. But I've seen so much from AAT, SEMA, like all of our charts, accountancy bodies and stuff that we're members of, like really celebrating this fact and celebrating like all of these issues that people have had. I just haven't seen it. So I don't really understand that change. That's one that I don't really understand it. So.
I've got a problem with it as well because, literally, folks, we bang on about this all the time. You've got an investment property in your own name, get the CGT. Yes, you've got 30 days. Do you want to guess how many people haven't done anything by day 10? And by day 15, we're really biting hard on them. So people force us to do the work right at the back end, predominantly. What do you think they're going to do now it's 60 days? Oh, I've got ages. Yeah, I haven't got to worry about that. I'll give it to you later. Day 45. It's not going to change.
It won't get any better.
It will not get better. So I don't know why they bothered. People just got to learn. And we've got the same problem coming up with MTD. Daniel, we were talking about it earlier on today.
Yeah. So MTD, again, making tax digital, big HMRC push on digitalising tax and so on, which we've already seen it with VAT. So VAT is already happening. They obviously then it was already late. So just bear in mind, guys, that they were already 2-3 years late in delivering the first stage of that. So are we surprised to see that there's another delay to it? No. So again, it was sort of announced a little bit earlier than the budget that there'd be further delay to those that fall under self-employed or landlords, and their income level on both of those, if their income, so was above £10,000, that they would then be pulled under the regime for making tax digital, which, as everybody knows, and again, we've shared lots of information about it, it's reporting information more frequently, probably more accurately, more frequently, and therefore, where's that going to lead? Yes, we'll have tax more frequently as well. So they've delayed that to April 2024, which, again, from my perspective, and as Mark said, we chatted about it before coming on air, and we get it from a software provider point of view. It's given them some more time to get to grips with it. It's often kick and rush, isn't it, with software providers with some, when these changes happen in a budget. I think it's probably got slightly better that it's now autumn with things happening in April rather than beginning of March and things happening in April that they've had before. But again, it causes, I think, some laziness for people as well to not be doing it. And again, as people know, we encourage people to be on top of these things because of, I'm a big advocate for good quality information, timely, gets you better information to make decisions on your business. And I don't care whether somebody's making 10 grand or if they're making tens of thousands of pounds, hundreds of thousands of pounds, then it's all relevant, isn't it? It's all relative to what they're doing. Yeah. This is important for that person to make those decisions there as it would be for big businesses. And again, I think MTD, there's a great opportunity that forces people that are a bit negative towards that to do some of those things. So the delay to it is a bit, from my perspective, I think is a bit of a shame. I think it's not encouraging some of those bits. And I also was surprised, not so much, there's lots of reasons that they can give, and I'm sure anybody that follows or sees any posts from either us or other accountants or whatever there might be there, that we are banging our head against a brick wall with HMRC at the moment with so many things, like simple things. And they're the only organisation that we're still dealing with that blame COVID. like everybody else, all of our clients, every other business we interact with, just, you know, they dusted themselves down a bit. They were a bit bruised and battered maybe at the start. They didn't know, but how quickly, you know, and again, it's credit to small business, really. You know, we deal with a lot of small, medium-sized businesses. Credit to those people about how quickly they just got on with it. So HMRC will use that as an excuse. They've still got all of these issues going along and all those sorts of things. But I was relatively confident that given how quick they got things like the furlough scheme up together, the portal for the self-employed grants and stuff, you think, blooming hell, they've just got something that goes from normally like 10 years in development down to like 3 weeks. Like they why don't you keep that momentum up and get some of these other good things to come in and do that? So yeah, that's the now.
I'm going to back up behind that because if you think back to the COVID period, lots of people got into trouble. And it was horrible, and it affected every single person listening to us. It affected us in terms of the amount of work we had to do without extra charging to people. We put on shifts, and it was awful. A lot of people's businesses didn't survive. Some of them would have been badly run. Now, it's easy to make a profit in a boom, but you've got to be lean and fit to make a profit in the bad times. Okay. And every time the government takes their foot off the accelerator, whether it's 60 days on CGT, whether it's MTD or something, they're just encouraging laziness. And people really need to be really good at their business, and they should be doing, as Daniel said, you should know your numbers. The numbers should be, the numbers actually guide you. They're not there for the taxmen. They're there to guide you with what are the opportunities, what are the threats, what are you doing right, what are you doing wrong, what can we do to improve your business, without the detail. So it's a shame to encourage laziness. So that's my 2 pennies. I've only got one more I really want to go through, Daniel. So can I do my last one?
Yeah.
I keep saying, look to the future, look to the future. So I want to talk about some of the future. As always, with any budget, you've got the red book comes out. And I'll be honest, I haven't read the whole of the red book yet. I'm sure Daniel hasn't. I don't know how many pages it was this year, but it's 370 normally, about that sort of number. And they haven't even published half of it yet. Things that we do know. Online sales tax. Yep, that's coming. Now, is it coming because they want to hit Amazon? Yeah, but they're also going to hit any of you that are delivering your services as an online service. Any contractors, you've been forced down because of IR35, you've been forced usually down an umbrella route, but there's no regulation of the umbrella companies. But it's coming. They've already announced it's coming. The last one I'm going to refer to are the non-regulated services. Now, there's 2 of them which every single time Daniel or I or any of the other directors and the big dogs in the firm sit in any of these meetings with HMRC, they crack on about all the time. R&D, and that one was talked about a lot in the budget yesterday, and capital allowances. These are unregulated advisors. And there's lots of schemes, and they are overclaiming relief. Overclaiming R&D relief and overclaiming capital allowance relief. They've already announced the review into the R&D one. Capital allowance one is coming. There's much more to come yet, folks. It was an interesting budget. I thought it was a clever budget. We didn't get any increase in the CGT rates, which a lot of us expected.
Yeah, and pensions was the other one that has been mentioned a lot, isn't it? About the expected restriction on the relief that you can individually get on like contributing into pension schemes and stuff. Yeah. So they were 2. Like I'll be honest, I sort of expected those to be mentioned this time. Like it's been rumored for the last 6 or so that was coming, or that it was going to be there. So I was surprised that it wasn't in some capacity.
Yeah, well, we all thought that the CGT one was definitely coming in March. And then we thought it was coming in prior to that. Everyone, and there's been lots of, we've never had such a leaky government, have we? ignoring Parliament the way they do. I think it's disrespectful. But it's always been leaked, but then they say, no, it isn't, because all they do is they leak and see what the reaction is. And when everyone screams, they don't announce it. And they said, oh, it was a rumor. It was never true. I think it was actually them testing the water. Personally. But there again, I'm a cynic. So, so our review of the budget, that's my review of it.
Yeah, I think there's one more topic, Mark, that we chat about that. Again, it doesn't affect directly a lot of our clients, and I'll explain why. So, lots of people will know that if you've got kids and they're below 18 and they're in full-time education, all those bits and pieces, that you may qualify for child benefit. So it's a weekly amount that's paid every 4 weeks, but it's linked to first child gets X amount, and then every subsequent child gets slightly less. So I don't know whether that's a thing about second siblings and stuff. I don't know the underlying thing that's there. But either way, there's an allowance that is there, that is paid, and it's a non-taxable income. So I just
realised. Hang on, I'm interrupting. I just realised you and I are both second siblings, aren't we?
Yeah.
It probably says something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Carry on.
So from like if there's anybody in the household that's earning over £50,000, this is taxable income. So it's gross income before any tax deduction. And there are, like with all of these things, there are some things that adjust that figure down. But let's just work on 50,000. You will start to lose your entitlement to that child benefit. So anywhere between 50,000 and at 60,000, you lose it completely. So you can still receive it, but there is a methodology for paying that back if you've overclaimed or if they've overpaid you for that amount. So I said, a lot of the time it doesn't affect our clients because we deal with tax returns, and anybody that we've done a tax return for will see the questionnaire that we send out, and we ask that question: have you received child benefit? And we're looking at it from a household perspective. And if you have got to pay some of it back, it's recorded on your tax return, and that's the method for doing it. There's an awful lot of people that will be in employed positions. So they earn over £50,000 and they may receive child benefits still. They've got no other reason for needing to be pulled into the self-assessment scheme. But they are still liable to pay that back if they fall above that limit. And the only vehicle for paying it back, has been to do a tax return. And there has been a relatively recent case which HMRC lost, where somebody had, they'd fallen into needing to pay it back, and they said, well, you've not sent me a notice to do a tax return. So how do I know? How did I know I needed to pay that back? And where was my method of paying it back? And that was really quite key because again, we know that from a real-time information point of view, so from what's reported on payroll, HMRC know what you're earning. They know what you've earned. So there's still an opportunity that they could have sent anybody that was earning over £50,000 and receiving child benefit. Remember, this is all one organisation in one way or another. Is it right hand, left hand? It's the same thing. They could have written to them to tell them that you need to do a tax return because you might owe us some money back, or maybe even just tell people that they owe them some money back. There may be a simpler scheme to doing it. HMRC haven't liked losing, so it was announced within some more of the detail that they're now going to retrospectively change the rules around it, which goes, well, actually, we didn't need to tell you that you needed to do a tax return. You needed to tell us that you owe that money back. So it's quite a key one because of, again, child benefit might affect very few people. It affects a lot of people. We see on a lot of tax returns, so it does affect people. Retrospective change to something is not a good thing, like in my opinion. So at what point and at what extent does that continue to extend to? Yeah. So what other taxes is that going to apply to? What other compliances?
They don't have to go to the government to ask. They don't go to the government, ask the government to write legislation. The government's given them the power to change the law retrospectively. Yeah. Law unto themselves.
And this is like, this one, repercussions of, and again, we talk a lot about from our experience of stuff like we know the direction of travel with some of these things that have changed over the years because of we know where they go. We've seen it before with other taxes or other sectors or whatever. So you can see, does it take 5 years to change it? Does it take 10? But they're on a path. And I think that's a potentially very horrible path.
Yeah. It moves at the moment, the window is 1 year. The HMRC have got an inquiry window of 1 year. And this change that Daniel has just been talking about is to extend it into what's called the discovery window, which means you can go back 7 years. So retrospectively, changing the rules, I've decided that in 2019, I changed the rules and I can go back 7 years, so I can go back to 2012. Thanks ever so much. Great. Anyone fancy retrospective legislation?
No.
Accountants don't. We don't fancy it either.
Just to answer Ray's question, just drop one in the chat box. Say, does this affect non-married couples with children? Yes. So it's household. So if somebody in your household is receiving child benefit, then they will look to the other partner in that household. And if one of you is earning over those limits, it still does apply. So it's per household. And it was quite a key change because of, I think before, if I remember rightly, because obviously now with the rules the way that they are, is you could have two people earning 49,999 quid.
Yep.
And keep all of it. So they basically got £100,000 worth of income into the house. Whereas you could have one person earning 60,000 and one earning none, and they lose it. So that rule change, that was one of the key changes when they brought this higher rate charge in the first place 3-4 years ago. That actually, again, it distorted that. But yeah, it does relate to non-married couples as well as married couples. So it's just household.
Yeah. So
yeah.
There's my summary anyway. I don't know if Daniel's got more, but for me, I think it's a case of it wasn't too bad, was it? All the bad stuff came in March. Don't rest on your laurels. Get on with your business. Get your strategy planning sorted out. It's only a short while before we started to see some of this other stuff coming in and biting us. So.
Yeah. Yep. No, I'm wrapped up. Those were the topics I wanted to cover.
Great. There were no more questions coming through in the chat box. So hopefully this has been interesting and you've learned something, folks. So
as when I've wrapped up these before, as many of you know, that the webinar stuff that we're doing and video is relatively new to us still. So we're still trying to get ways to make it more creative, more interactive, and so on. So I always ask if there's any topics that anybody wants to have covered off, anything that's of interest, whether that's sector specific, whether that's software, whether that's tax, whether that's business, running your business and so on. Do feel free to drop either myself or Mark a message and feed that back into us. Because like I said, we're really keen. We love it. We love the interaction that it brings with clients and the opportunity to chat through some of these topics. So like I said, do feel free to drop us a message, give us those suggestions. We're all ears to more things we can do to hopefully add value to you guys and get useful information out.
Great. Thanks ever so much.
So yeah, we'll wrap up. So thank you everybody for attending and we'll see you all again soon. Cheers, Mark.